Hello everyone, and welcome back to another solo spooky story. My name's Rob, and today I'll be your host. Those of you who don't know, the solo spooky stories are stories told by myself every other week, where I'll talk about something that I find pretty interesting, or a listener submission has been given into us, or myself and Suze have found something that we want to talk about, but there's just not content there for a main episode. It also serves as just a different format of the podcast as well. We have the conversational types between myself and Suze, or with guests or whatever, and this one's just a one-on-one between you and me. So everyone seems to have their preferences, and there seems to be quite a lot of people that really like these sort of episodes, so that's why we keep them going. And they're just fun, something a bit different. And I know people also appreciate the shorter length of these episodes. It's difficult to sit down for like a full hour and listen to a full episode, but if you've only got a 15 or 20 minute episode, that's much more palatable for a lot of people. So yeah, they're a fun time. But with that said, I hope whenever it is you're listening to this, that you're having a lovely day. I know that a lot of people say that they listen to the short episodes when they come out on Friday mornings. They're like perfect for commuting or for having with a cup of coffee. I totally get that. 20 minutes, as I said, it's much more palatable to sit down with a cup of tea or coffee and my ramblings. So I totally understand that. But with that said, let's get into this. So as you all know, Sue's recently revisited the Reynham house in our 50th episode, actually, which was great. She revisited it, and I know while it was accidental that a revisit was done, it was a justified revisit, because the short episode I was happy with, but there was certain things that I just didn't put in it because it's a short episode. I'm not going to go into all the details, but it's got me thinking after she did that, if there's other haunted locations or buildings that I'd like to talk about that I just haven't really got around to. And the one that I'm talking about today has been one that I have been just kind of been aware of for ages, but never actually really thought about doing an episode on it until, as I said, Sue's revisited Reynham Hall. So today we're talking about the ancient Ram Inn, and just on the offset, this building just looks phenomenal. It's got this like Tudor style architecture. It just looks weird. it's the, I suppose, classic British looking pub, and it delivers everything that you really want from a haunted spooky location, and it's a perfect place to do one of these with these stories. So the building itself, just for some background, it's in Wotan under Edge, or Wotton under Edge. I don't know how to pronounce it, the area. It's in Gloucestershire in England, and it is allegedly it's an 800-year-old pub slash building slash kind of everything in between, but the building itself allegedly has been there since 1145, and it's just this really interesting looking building. As I said, like, it's this kind of like Tudor style, like black wooden beams going across the walls, and inside there's like low wooden beams as well, and it's kind of a bit maze-like in the interior. And yeah, it's just this really unique architecture to the building, and it just looks really cool. So yeah, as I said, it dates back to 1145, and it was originally built to house priests and also stonemasons who were working on the nearby church. I think it's called St. Mary's Church. And yeah, as initially was this kind of like house for them to stay in, it kind of evolved in its use over the centuries. It transitioned from this, I suppose, religious center, or this kind of service center for religious folk, into a public house that just welcomed all travelers along the way. And I saw a quote online about it, which I think is just a great way to describe it, is that it quietly absorbed centuries of local lore and mystery. And I do love that. I think that's a great way to put it. So as you can imagine, the inn's medieval construction does play a fairly major role in its kind of eerie reputation. It's got those thick stone walls, narrow, I suppose, labyrinthian style corridors. Like, it looks very cramped on the inside. It's got the low ceilings, it's got the creaking wooden floors, it's got everything that you need to create this environment where, shadows just seem to linger a little bit longer than they should, and every sound in the building just seems amplified. That's one thing that I've seen talked about online, is that sounds just seem louder, and I'd assume that could be because of the stone walls. Maybe sounds are like bouncing off, the acoustics could be all thrown off. But what I see online described a lot is that it's just eerie. Added with this, so allegedly the actual design of the structure has actually come complete with its own hidden passageway, which, why not? It just adds to all of this. There's oddly shaped rooms. It's just the whole thing. It just goes against conventional building structures, I suppose is the way to put it. Even the outside, when you look at pictures of it on the outside, it looks like it's kind of like bulging. It's a really, really weird way to describe a building, but that's kind of what it looks like. It looks like that it's kind of like bulging out from the inside. It just looks cool. And I suppose because of its unique architecture and its style, it's kind of no wonder that guests have kind of found themselves, I suppose, both physically and psychologically unsettled in the walls of this building. So, it puts you in a sense of unsettlement, I suppose, just being in there with its kind of cramped feelings. And it would start to play tricks on your mind, I assume. These sort of places, they do have a tendency to make you start to kind of wonder. And I think when you're aware of the lore around it, it will only make you even more curious about what's going on there. So I suppose moving deeper into why we're talking about this today and what's made this building stand out more than others. Many believe that the ancient Ram Inn was actually built on an ancient pagan burial ground, and I don't know how true that is, but I've seen multiple sources online mention it, so there must be something to it, or it's the best rumor ever. So I suppose this idea kind of gives an extra chill to its history, kind of suggesting that the area is once used for ancient pagan rituals, and I suppose it kind of explains, or goes a long way to explain, why people would think there's a lingering presence there, or that there's like unsettled spirits of some sort. And in addition to this, the inn is actually said to be located at, and we are going to do a full episode on this, I promise, so I won't get too much into it. But the inn is allegedly supposed to be located at, I suppose, the crossing point of two powerful ley lines, which I suppose the Spark Notes version of ley lines is that there are these mystical energy pathways that crisscross over the land, and much like Ghostbusters, you're not supposed to cross the streams here, and if you do, they generate dark energy and dark power and all this sort of stuff. That's the Spark Notes version. I promise we're going to do an episode on Ley Lines, because I know it's going to infuriate the fuck out of Suze once we start talking about it, and I cannot wait. So yeah, people have argued that these energy veins in the earth basically enhance these paranormal occurrences, and that they've in some sense almost imbued the building with this kind of relentless oppressive aura, or like supernatural power that's there. And these are just these sort of stories, they're always just perfect makings for like brilliant ghost stories. You've got this old building, you've got these rumors of it being built on a pagan burial site where sacrifices were made, and ancient gods were worshipped, and they must have known about the mythical ley lines in the area because they built their settlement on it, and they were worshipping these dark energies, and it writes itself. It's almost Lovecraftian in just kind of the darkness of it all. And as I said, these stories end up just kind of write themselves. It's very easy to let your mind run with all the possibilities that you have here with these sort of things. So let's dive deeper into what makes the ancient Ram Inn such a magnet for paranormal activity. So I suppose, what is it about this centuries old building that's incited so many ghostly encounters and just these weird sensations? So for starters, one of the most chilling accounts comes from a previous owner. His name was John Humphreys, and John Humphreys bought the building in the late 60s, I believe, when it finally closed its doors as a pub and became just a listed building. So he's the former owner of the inn, and he lived up till 2017. And he claims that one night he was preparing for bed. It was a quiet night. There was not much really going on there. Getting ready for bed. I don't know if he lived on his own or if he was just on his own this night, but I suppose it doesn't really matter. Those details are unnecessary. But he claims that he was abruptly just pulled from his bed by this unseen force. He says that he was dragged across his room by this dark, malevolent presence, and that he has absolutely no idea what it was. He was just in his bed one moment and then out of it the next, and was being pulled across the room, across these heavy wooden floors, with no noise, no visible presence doing it, and it understandably terrified the shit out of him. And I suppose these experiences don't seem to be isolated. They actually seem to kind of, as I saw someone say online, they underscore the raw intensity of the energy that seems to inhabit these walls. So many visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures just lurking, I suppose, just beyond the corners of their vision. The apparitions, they're kind of elusive in nature, and they seem to blend with the inn's, as I mentioned earlier, those kind of like maze-like corridors. They're low ceilings and just general spooky vibes, and it generally leaves observers with this sense of dread and this kind of uncanny feeling that they're just not alone. Some have said that these silhouettes could be remnants of, past lives, or, like that kind of stone tape theory, which again, we'll do another episode on, and that these remnants of the past are just trapped between worlds in the building's history, effectively. That these ley lines have somehow sealed these memories within the very building itself. And then, I suppose, along with the visible sightings, there's also a lot of auditory phenomena. And this is one of the things that I love, I think more than maybe even the visible stuff. So paranormal investigators in the building claim that they've captured disembodied voices on recordings. They themselves would say that they're soft but unmistakable kind of whispers and like quiet voices that just come from nowhere. A lot of guests that have stayed there over the years speak of hearing footsteps echoing in empty rooms or experiencing sudden bursts of unexplainable static. Static being on like an audio recorder or something like that, all of a sudden just hearing that white noise. There's been a lot of EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, recorded during investigations there, and they will often reveal, I suppose, snippets of conversations or cries for help or murmurs or any sort of voices that shouldn't be there. You can hear them, and I suppose it kind of defies that, I suppose, rational explanation if you wanted to. And I suppose whether these echoes or voices or whatever you want to call them are, ancient tragedies replaying or manifestations of some sort of dark energy, they just add another layer of mystery to this building. So I suppose I've talked about the history in the area, but a lot of people will kind of ask, like, what actually fuels these ghostly events? Like, something must have happened in the past that has made this such a site for the paranormal. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of researchers and enthusiasts in the area point to the literal ground on which the inn was built. So legends have said that beneath the ancient Ram Inn lies this ancient pagan burial ground, as I said, and it's allegedly over 5,000 years old, going back to the Neolithic times. And it was once the site of ritualistic ceremonies. How people know this, I have absolutely no idea. But as I said, I've seen it mentioned a number of times. I don't know if someone just mentioned it once and it grew legs, but it's out there. Coupled with, as I said about the ley lines, a lot of people just believes that this just amplifies paranormal activity and that the environment here is effectively just primed for supernatural encounters. And it's almost as if this building has become this living repository for centuries of dark history and unnatural energy and just lingering echoes of past sorrows. That the literal ground itself is just manifesting this, and paranormal researchers will say that it was inevitable that it would happen in this building because of all the darkness and the power and everything that's there. So it's I suppose it's kind of almost like a powder keg of paranormal activity. It's just waiting to go. Kind of cool if you think about it. And I suppose as the site has become more famous, you've seen paranormal shows like Most Haunted or Ghost Adventures and all conducting in-depth investigations on the site. I say investigations in air quotes. The crews there have kind of used a variety of ghost hunting equipment. They've used infrasound generators, EVP recorders, high sensitivity cameras, the whole everything that they can possibly throw at it they are. And they have all kind of claimed in various different ways that they've captured these unexplained noises, visual anomalies, conversations, everything during the night. These are kind of tough things to discredit or to believe. It's one of those things where it's very easy for you to say, like, well, no, it's just not true. It's like blatantly not. Like it could be an error in the recording or whatever, and that's totally fine. But it's quite difficult to prove that. I suppose though the need to prove it is on the person who's claiming what it is, and then on the other hand, for the people that do believe it, to them this is clear evidence that the area is haunted, effectively, and it's very difficult to convince them otherwise. So yeah, a lot of skeptics have argued that the peculiar kind of acoustics in the building and the psychological factors at play kind of feed into these experiences. And psychological factors I'm talking about is like the knowledge that the building is haunted, the knowledge of the history of it, the alleged ley lines, and as I said, the actual architecture of the building itself, the cramped sort of feelings it makes you feel unsettled. And that all of these combined together just add to the overall belief that this building is haunted, and just the sheer volume and consistency of reported encounters all claim that there's a powerful force at work there. So yeah, like, I suppose the thing with all of these stories though is that ultimately the hauntings of the ancient Ram Inn, they kind of weave together like these personal testimonies mixed with some people claiming evidence, like technological evidence, but ultimately I think there's this kind of ghostly historical lore that's being established here that when people go there they find what they're looking for. I suppose anyone who's going there expecting to hear ghostly whispers or see spectral images, it's probably what they're going to see. On the other hand, someone going there looking to discredit what they're seeing as, you know, the environment playing tricks on them, or, you know, psychology at play or something like that, it's easy for them to also discredit. And I think that's kind of the beauty of these sort of stories, is that you kind of get whatever you want out of them. You know, it's whatever you're looking for, it's there, you know, and that's what I do love about these buildings. So the kind of, I've talked about John Humphrey's experience, I've talked about, you know, other things that have been seen there. The last kind of spots I want to talk about there is the witch's room in this building. So it's said that the spirit of a woman who was condemned for witchcraft, because obviously you need a witch in the site as well, she allegedly lingers there in eternal sorrow. And this room, like others in the inn, allegedly carries this weight in the room that when people go in there they feel oppressed. They say that it feels dark when they go in there and they don't know why. It just all adds to the air of mystery. Like if you're telling someone when they walk in there that they're going to feel oppressed, they're going to feel dark energy, that's probably what they're going to feel if they're primed for that. If that's what they want to believe, they will. And, you know, it's just this really, as I said, unique looking building, and it just adds to the whole air of mystery around it. And it's really effectively cemented its place in this kind of modern paranormal culture as a must-see destination for both paranormal enthusiasts and history buffs. There's ghost tours in the area, there's themed events, there's merch developed all around it. It's kind of transformed into this like living monument, and it kind of preserves the history, I suppose, there, but unfortunately also commercializes it as well. And yeah, it's just fueling the lore even more and building even more legend around it. And yeah, it's just a really cool building that I want to talk about. And yeah, it's been there since the 12th century, probably going to be there for another long while yet, and I'm sure there'll be even more stories to come out about it in the future. But that really kind of covers the ancient Ram Inn. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If we ever do a trip to the UK, I suppose a paranormal trip to the UK, this definitely I think will be on the list. I'd love to go visit it, just even to just see what it looks like. It's just this really cool, unique looking building, and I'd love to see what it's all about. But yeah, as I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. You can let us know on social media, on Threads and Instagram at the SpookAF Pod. You can reach out to us on Gmail at the SpookAFpodcast@gmail.com, or you might even catch us in the YouTube comments when we upload this. But I'd love to know if you think that this building is actually haunted, what your thoughts are on ley lines. Do you think that there's actually something to that? I personally, I don't know. It's a weird one, all right. You know, do you think that this is just a pagan burial site there that's had ritualistic sacrifice done there, or is it all just made up, and is it just a cool looking building that people have just built stories around? That's it. But with that said, I hope you're having a lovely day whenever it is you're listening to this, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.